I wanted to ask you a little bit about the Queen's Library. I guess scandal is maybe too strong a word, but there was a hearing a couple of weeks ago in the city council. It seems like the head of the Queen's Library has been collecting a very exorbitant salary. Meanwhile, the library's finances don't seem to be in very good shape. You wrote a letter to the board of trustees of the library. Can you kind of explain what you hope to get done with the Queen's Library?
There's a few things that immediately need to take place. Whether or not the salary is exorbitant, by the way, compared to other not-for-profits, is something that the board needs to figure out, right? There is what's called an executive compensation study that's to be done by board of trustees of not-for-profits. So that needs to be done. We need to figure out, is it exorbitant? Is it not? I mean, because we all know the perks and all of that was also another issue. That's not even including the salary, right, that need to be looked at. So there needs to be an executive compensation study to find out, in fact, how much they want to pay an executive director, whoever that is, right? If it's Tom, if it's not Tom, whatever it is. Then we need to make sure that that person has a start and an end date to their contract, right? You can't have a contract that just continues in a not-for-profit, especially a not-for-profit that gets 85% of its funding from the city of New York, right? It's not like it's purely raising it all privately and that there's a foundation and a trust, trustees that are raising all this money themselves and then they figure out how they want to spend it. It's 85% city money. And last but not least, I think that we need to figure out, do we want or not the executive director and other staff at a library to have outside employment? And if they can, how do we monitor that? But I think at the end of the day, my big request to the libraries is that they treat it almost like a city agency. Folks should know what the staff is making. Folks should know what type of perks anyone gets in the library because it is such city-oriented facility and city money. So I think it's only fair that they need to fill out financial disclosure forms, how much outside income do you get, how much stocks, the whole bit. I have to do it. My staff, my key staff has to do it at the borough president's office. So this isn't a new thing.
Oh, is it now up to the board of trustees to act on some of these proposed reforms, or where does it stand now in that discussion?
So I asked them for Thursday, because there's a big meeting on Thursday, a trustee meeting, to review the compensation, to execute an executive compensation study, and to deal with the outside income issue. I think what you're asking is how does that translate into actually effectiveness? If the board wouldn't do it, then the state legislature would have to act. And we are working with Assemblyman Jeff Aubrey in looking at what type of legislation would be necessary. I think it's important for folks to remember that the library is actually a creation of the state, not the city. So even though it's really city funded, it's the state that created it. So the bylaws can only be directed and redone really by state legislation.